Let's get started then. Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you all for attending our May neighborhood meeting. This will be the last meeting before our summer break, so we don't have one in July. We have a fantastic lineup of guest speakers this evening, but first I need to address a couple of administrative issues. So please be aware this meeting will be recorded for the convenience of those who cannot attend and will be accessible on our Facebook page and our website, mossbay.org, starting tomorrow. We kindly request that you keep your microphones muted unless you're actively speaking. We'll reserve questions for the end of each presentation. And if you have a question, just raise your hand, unmute, and just ask it, or you could type it in the chat and I'll read it out so that it can be recorded. All right. So with that, okay, first off, we have the Kirkland Police Department updates. And I understand you have an early presentation tomorrow morning, Chief Harris. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. And that's why we have you first on the agenda.
Thank you very much. I had a PowerPoint, but I'm not sure if it's okay to share that, or if you just want me to, I can also just talk through it as well.
No, go ahead and share. Let's see. Okay, you should be okay to share. Yep, it's coming through.
Of course, it started in the middle. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I'm Cherie Harris. I have the honor of being the Chief of Police of the Kirkland Police Department. I have been a police officer for just over 31 years and have been here at Kirkland since 2012, and I've been the Chief of Police for the last 8 years. So just wanted to give you a little bit of an update and then take any questions you might have. And if there's something that I'm not able to answer tonight, I certainly will get back to you and can share that answer to whatever that question is. But we have a fantastic police department in the city of Kirkland. They are incredibly professional. They are dedicated, very proactive, working hard. We are doing pretty well on staffing right now. At 103 on May 16th, so that's coming right up in a few days. We've continued to have retirements, and we've continued to have a few officers that leave as soon as they have 20 years on or are going to the private sector. There were several officers that were looking to leave and go to other departments that were closer to home. And the picture up in the left-hand corner is of a program that the city of Kirkland implemented. The city manager, actually, it was his idea to implement some electric take-home vehicles. Most of our comps, most of the departments we're competing with right now are providing patrol cars, which are super expensive. And so this is a very innovative way to provide a take-home car at much less the cost. So talk a little bit about crime, because I know everyone really wants to know about what's going on in the Moss Bay neighborhood. And so this is not comparing the first quarter, but it is comparing all the activity in 2023 to the first four.
Our neighborhood.
And a couple of things that I want to point out is that both motor vehicle prowls and motor vehicle theft are a national issue right now. And certainly in the state of Washington, there are definitely Kias that you hear in the media that are being targeted. And if anybody owns a Kia right now, depending on the year of the vehicle, they're offering some free software updates that they're hoping will help reduce your vehicle being stolen. So if you Google that, there's some local events occurring in Bellevue and then a little bit further away in Tacoma. But then theft, you see, it had a pretty high number in 2023, and we're about a third of the way there in the first quarter, so a little bit higher than we should be. And that's actually attributed to a series of package thefts that had occurred in apartment complex mail rooms. And so we have made multiple arrests in several different cases that are involving mail rooms, where subjects are coming in and loading up boxes and stealing them all at once. And the best deterrent to that is really ensuring that those rooms are locked and that residents are not allowing other people in that they don't know. Then just if you want to see more about crime dashboards, we have interactive dashboards that are online. We have a use of force dashboard. The transparency dashboard there will show all kinds of data for you on crimes in Kirkland. And then community resource officer dashboard as well. So anything that's happening in schools. Crime prevention tips. Also, if there's something specific that you want to know on like how to avoid identity theft, our website also has a lot of information on how to prevent crime and be safe. And then community crime mapping. So you can dial down into your neighborhood with community crime mapping. It's also available on our website. One thing I would say is that a caveat to this is that it takes a couple days before it's actually added to the software, and it has to have been reported. There has to have been a police report that was created. So sometimes you might hear something on social media or next door that isn't actually reported. And so when you go to crime mapping and you're like, what's going on? I heard this happen in my neighborhood. It's possible that it wasn't actually reported. But a lot of good information on crime mapping about more things that are going on close to your neighborhood. And then I started this in the middle because I didn't want to miss it if I wasn't able to share my presentation tonight, but we have had a short period of time, well, actually almost a year, about 9 months, where we didn't have an animal control officer. And Angela Arnold is our new animal control officer. Here's a picture of her here. She has been to the academy and she has been through training with experienced animal control officers in neighboring agencies and is available now on solo patrol to take any kind of animal calls. She started patrolling the parks and has actually issued some off-leash dog tickets. So that is back. That's definitely a complaint we get a lot from patrons of parks, is that dogs that are off leash and bother them. One thing that we're about to implement is a new texting feature for pet licensing, and also will help with locating lost pets as well for notification. So, you know, right now, if you're going to go to the doctor or the dentist, you're going to get a text from them saying, please press 1 if you're coming, or press 2 if you, something like that, right? Or press 2 if you want to cancel. And so this feature would be notifying pet owners if their licenses are expired, and or trying to locate lost pets. So you can opt in as well, and just simply text the word pets to the number that's here on the screen. So we also usually utilize social media, and that's been the biggest platform in reuniting pets. And then licenses. Reporting crimes, I just again say, please, if you see something and you're concerned, call 911. If officers are busy and they're not able to get there right away and it's not an emergency, then the dispatchers and the police officer supervisors will work that out. There is a non-emergency line as well. If you call that number, they will say 911, what's your emergency? And the reason they're saying that is because sometimes people really do have emergencies, but they don't want to call 911, so they use the non-emergency line, but it's really an emergency. The dispatcher though knows that it's not the 911 call, that it is a non-emergency line, but they're still going to say 911, what's your emergency? If it's not, just say it's not an emergency and share the information you have. We do have online police reporting that's also super helpful. You can do tips there on suspicious circumstances or vehicles that are parked in your neighborhood that have been there for a long time, abandoned vehicles. And then the Our Kirkland portal is actually an app that you can download on your phone, and you can also communicate with the city and the police department there. So one new program that's coming to Kirkland that I just wanted to touch on and you may hear from other departments in the city, is that we are getting a new crisis response center in Kirkland, and it will be actually not very far from the police department and available for anyone who's experiencing a behavioral or mental health crisis. And so it gives another location for people to go. There are times where someone might have be in crisis and they walk into Fairfax and say, I need help. And Fairfax is a mental health hospital that's off of Northeast 132nd, but it doesn't just take walk-ins. The Crisis Response Center will take walk-ins, and it's actually going to be a fairly robust program to help those in crisis, and then those that are not in acute crisis but need to connect with services. So that was a really fast presentation, because I know you have a lot going on tonight, and I don't want to take up too much time, but wanted to give you a quick overview of what's going on with the Kirkland Police Department and crime in your neighborhood, and see if you have any questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that overview. Yeah, I guess I can sort of kick things off. So considering all the initiatives that are underway, or are those that are being maybe strategized by you and your department, given the current trends or issues that are coming along around homelessness or activities of various cooperative task force, I see, what do you perceive as the sort of the largest challenges ahead for your department?
Continuing to retain good police officers and recruit good police officers continues to be a priority for the department. And then as far as community facing, right, so homelessness is not a crime, but it is certainly impacts the community and impacts those that are experiencing homelessness. And you've probably heard, because you're asking me that question, that we have a fairly wide variety of departments that are working to ensure that we can respond to encampments that might be along the cross Kirkland corridor, or if something were to occur in a park, that we have the resources and the communication between departments to respond. Many officers that work downtown, if there are persons experiencing homelessness, they know who they are. They know them by name, and are working to build trust to try and connect them with services and try to get them housed, or at least temporarily housed. And the city has a homeless outreach coordinator now, who's very active in the city. Melly is her name, and she's fantastic. Works really hard to build trust. And then, that really is part of trying to solve any problem, right? Is building a relationship.
Correct. There's a question from Mary Pat in the chat. What percentage of our police force lives in Kirkland?
I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but I would tell you that my belief is it's fairly small percentage. Most officers do not live in Kirkland. I can think of 4 off the top of my head. 2 I know that are renting, actually pretty close to your neighborhood, if not in it, in condos. And then 1 that lives in Kingsgate and 1 that lives in Finn Hill. But I have to think about that harder to get them all right.
So you talked about the community, or you showed us the community crime mapping tool, right? I'm just wondering, how do you see us actually using that? What are we supposed to take away from that?
Well, certainly a way for you to know what's occurring in your area. Really, the most important thing I would tell you is please lock your cars. Don't leave I'm not sure if you've heard it before, but don't leave your garage door opener inside your car. Please don't leave a gun in your car. That is the number 1 place that guns in Kirkland are stolen from.
Okay.
Our vehicles. And obviously the garage door opener, we don't leave it in your car outside of your house, because someone may try and steal it. And they may, try and steal that at a shopping mall or some other place. So that's certainly something to be careful about. And then please know your neighbors. And neighbors, if you see something that isn't right and you can't get a hold of, Brenda, then call us, and we'd rather swing by and find out what's going on, and protect Brenda's home than find out later that you had a hunch that something wasn't right. And
Glenn
I see
has,
Stu has her hand up too.
oh, sorry. Yeah. Go ahead. Who's that? Curtis, is it?
Ryan.
Oh, sorry. Sue. Yeah.
Hi, Chief. I just read on Nextdoor that the drive-through mailbox at our Kirkland post office, the whole thing was stolen. And it was about around tax day. And I thought, I didn't know who to. It seems to me like that message should get out to the city. So if I put my tax return in there and stuff like that, it would be a real easy way for the thieves to get a whole bunch of good information. Anyway, I wouldn't have known about it if I didn't read it on Nextdoor. So I didn't know how to broadcast that to the people in the city that might have used that drive-through mailbox.
Well, I'll check on that because I didn't hear about that, but it doesn't mean it's not true.
Thank you.
Okay. Curtis has his hand raised. Curtis, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. Chief, I've been negligent or just lazy for a long time, but last night I got a very rude reminder of the fact that pre-pandemic and pandemic and since, the traffic control management in the downtown area of Kirkland has almost disappeared compared to what it used to be. But last night, the car doing at least 35 or 40 miles an hour nearly ran me over in a crosswalk. And I shouted at the person through the open window, and all they did was step on the accelerator harder. And there have been other times when I was in that crosswalk and a car did that. And one time there was a patrol car who didn't do anything until I raised up my hands and turned like, what in the world? Yeah, and then they turned around and went after me. So what is the deal? Why don't we see traffic control in downtown Kirkland almost ever anymore?
I have a great answer for that. I will just tell you that we do have officers that are working, that their sole purpose is to take collisions and to work on traffic complaint zones. We have a traffic unit. We have 2 motorcycles. We have 2 officers in cars, and we have a sergeant. And they're constantly looking at where do we have collisions and working those areas to try and reduce collisions, and then working on complaints in areas where there are complaints.
Well, let me tell you the hot spot. Central Way, anywhere near rush hour, you don't have to work hard to find a bunch of people doing way over the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit and ignoring people. I've seen a teenager stuck in the middle of the street on Central Way because cars in both directions wouldn't even slow down so we could get out of the crosswalk. So I'm hoping for some attention there. I understand there's more work than everybody can handle, but I don't want to hear about people getting run down in crosswalks either.
Neither do I. Absolutely agree.
Right. There's another question from Glenn in the chat. How many officer openings are there currently?
So we are authorized for 108 officers. And as I said, we have 2 new officers that are starting on May 16th, and we'll be at 103. One is an experienced officer, and one is a entry level, a new officer. And I don't know how long it takes to update crime mapping. It isn't. I see the question in the chat. It isn't instantaneous, so it does take a while for that to occur. And we will have additional summer patrols. We actually were going to wait until June to post some of the park patrols that we've done in the last couple of years. We really started those in 2020 during COVID. Thought we might be able to get away with not starting until June. And this weekend was a nice weekend, and we had a lot of calls in the parks and a lot of look like younger people that were hanging out late at night, and it wasn't just to see the lights. And so we will start some overtime patrols in the next weekend for Memorial Day weekend. Well, I guess it's the weekend before Memorial Day weekend and Memorial Day. And that includes the traffic emphasis on like Washington Boulevard, Juanita, kind of all of those kind of hotspot areas.
Okay. I think that should wrap things up for us here. Thank you so much for joining us, Chief Harris. Really appreciate the updates.
Thank you all very much. And I'll check on that Park Lane business and see what's going on with that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so up next we have a introduction to what the Kirkland Tourism Program is. If Diana Hart, Kirkland Government Affairs Manager, is online.
I am.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. So tonight I'm also joined by Switzer, who's a Special Projects Coordinator on the team with me that helps with all the economic development and tourism at the city. So we'll kind of be tag teaming a little bit of a background information and then open up to any. So just quickly, the city's tourism program is predominantly funded by the 1% excise tax that we collect on lodging at the city. So anytime someone stays in a hotel, motel, or Airbnb, they generate a little bit of money that goes to the city, and that collectively funds the tourism program that we have here. Most of that goes to our Explore Kirkland platform that you might have seen. It has a similar backend to the Shop Local Kirkland platform, so highly recommend you check those out if you're looking for things to do in Kirkland. We keep those relatively updated with new information and are registering new businesses every month. And the lodging taxes are directed by the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, known as the Tourism Development Committee in Kirkland, which has some representatives of local hotels and some events that can spend lodging tax revenues in Kirkland. So they meet a couple times a year and they help direct how those funds should be spent in Kirkland. Most of that funding does go to the Explore Kirkland platform, but we also set a competitive grant program each year for events to happen. So we have events apply every year. In the last couple of years, or for a handful of years, we've seen big events like Kirkland Uncorked and Oktoberfest get funded through that. And some of our local smaller events, like our runs and 5Ks, will get funding through that. This year, we did a slightly different approach where we put a little bit more funding into the marketing of our small events. So you'll see hopefully a little bit more, actually, hopefully none of you will see it. Hopefully your neighbors that live more than 50 miles away will see some more targeted marketing on fun events that are happening in Kirkland as a reason to come to Kirkland and spend the night or weekend with us. Christian, am I missing anything? Anything else worth throwing in there as a quick overview?
Yeah, so if you know of events or you're throwing an event, you can always submit those. On Explore Kirkland, there's a drop-down option. If you have a business or you know someone who should be on that site, you can let them know to join either on Shop Local or on Explore Kirkland. They're actually connected on the back end, and I'm happy to duplicate those listings so that if they're like a restaurant, that would be both something you would shop locally and something that would draw in tourism, they would be on both websites. I think that's, yeah, you covered a lot, Diana, like really succinctly. So if you have any questions, though, happy to answer those tonight.
So I remember in the past there were some special programs for tourists. I don't know, I don't recall. There was some sort of like a rebate program or something like that. Have those all gone away, or what's happening for the summer?
Probably Kirkland Cash would be my guess, which is a program that we set up during COVID. Okay. We've actually iterated on that and are doing a program for people who renew their pet licenses. So instead of having it targeted at tourists, we have it now targeted at Kirkland residents. So anytime anyone renews their pet license, they are eligible for $15 in Kirkland Cash that you can redeem at eligible Kirkland businesses.
Oh,
Probably be
fantastic.
that one. Yeah.
And you mentioned to spend more funding in terms of some of the marketing for Kirkland tourism this summer. What sort of channels are you using for that? Is it strictly online, social media? What?
The city has predominantly pivoted to digital marketing over the last handful of years. We found that to be a little bit more successful. We have a digital marketing consultant that gives us great advice on strategies and locations to target that marketing and optimized it through all of the really smart digital marketing terms that I'm moderately good at, but they're very good at. And so they regularly keep us up to date of what they're doing with great success in the work that they're doing at reaching the right people who are interested in those topics. And we've recently partnered with a geofencing program to better track the year-over-year tourism improvements. So hopefully we'll better optimize our target of markets outside of the greater Kirkland area and start looking at other states to encourage them to start traveling to Kirkland.
And are there any good statistics that you publish for how many tourists we get and how is that changing year over year or season over season?
We aren't publishing that right now, but that's a really good idea. So we do annual reports to the state on our lodging tax revenues, but that's really the extent of it. And it's a pretty kind of lackluster report. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but that's a good flag of something that we might want to think about doing moving forward to kind of share that information out with everyone.
Okay. Anyone else have questions either in the chat or just raise your hand? Okay, it looks like that was very comprehensive. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, up next, we have Sheila Cloney to present to us what the Kirkland Main Street program is all about. Sheila, are you there?
I am here.
There you are.
Here I am. Okay, so I am actually out of town, and so I don't have any flashy graphics to put up. But I have them, I just don't have them here. So my name is Sheila Cloney, and thank you for allowing me to join your meeting tonight. I'm here to introduce you to Kirkland Main Street and the efforts that are being taken to support a welcoming downtown that is sustainable and prosperous for businesses, property owners, residents, and visitors alike. If you're not familiar with the term Main Street, it's a state and national preservation-based economic development approach designed to revitalize downtowns. Washington State's program lives under the Washington State Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, and then the national program has been around since about 1977, and it's a subsidiary of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. This is not landmark preservation, if anybody is thinking that. As you may already know, a group of downtown businesses and property owners who are interested in taking a more active role in the economic health of downtown formed a 501c3 and applied for and received affiliate Main Street status from the state in January 2024. Downtown Kirkland is now one of 77 Washington communities that are associated with the Main Street program. And some of the other Main Street communities you may recognize are Port Townsend, Anacortes, Pioneer Square, Gig Harbor, Vancouver, Walla Walla, Roslyn, Everett, and even the Seattle International District. So until now, there was no organized group specifically working to bring together all stakeholders who have a direct interest in the economic health of our downtown. So at about this point, people started asking, well, what about the KDA and the Chamber of Commerce? And yes, the Kirkland Main Street is working with the Kirkland Downtown Association and the Chamber of Commerce to ensure that there's no duplication of effort. Kirkland Main Street supports the work that the KDA does, which is primarily event related, And the Chamber of Commerce, we're working with them, and they are a membership organization, and they have an eye towards regional activities, and they also serve the entire city. So Kirkland Main Street was formed to take a holistic approach to addressing the issues and opportunities facing our downtown, to gain greater access to state resources such as grants and networking opportunities. For example, we have been meeting with leaders from all over the state via Zoom every month from downtowns to discuss best practices. And it's funny how we all sort of have the same problems. We have also met with the National Main Street Group, and they talk a lot about national trends, which are also quite interesting. There's an annual conference, which if anybody's in Walla Walla this October, stop by. They are great conferences. People come from all over and share lots of useful information. So far, of most special interest to the downtown businesses is for Kirkland to work toward becoming a Main Street community, which is the next level. By becoming a community, which is not a quick venture, we would gain access to the state tax incentive program that puts business and occupation taxes back into the actual downtown. So I'm mostly here tonight just to let you know about this new organization, in hopes that you'll be interested in learning more and maybe even getting involved. This is a big program with way too much to unpack in just a few minutes. And if you're interested in learning more, I suggest you check out the Washington Main Street websites. They have tons of information. Vancouver, who I know the city is currently talking to a lot lately because of some other issues coming up. They have a strong Main Street program, and they have a great website, lots of information there as well. Also, let your favorite downtown businesses know about Main Street and encourage them to attend one of our Tuesday morning introductory meetings at the Grape Choice. We will also be participating in Main Street Week, which is June 10th through 16th. And at that time, we'll be launching our new website, doing outreach at the Wednesday market, other fun stuff. And also we'll be announcing a meet and greet for later this year. And then finally, hopefully I can come back later this year or next year and give you another update of all the exciting things we've done and are accomplishing. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Very interesting program. I was just curious. I know you touched on it really quickly, but what does it take then for our Main Street to become part of the Main Street community? Like, what is all that's involved from, I guess, where we are, just an affiliate now?
So we have affiliate status right now. Okay. And that required, there is a historical component. We had to provide information about the historical buildings we have, and many people go, well, what are the buildings that we have? If you go up Market Street, you've got the Art Center, the Sears building, there's some, and if you can believe it, Caroline Point's an antique now. So they're even in there as well now. So there is that piece, and what we have to do now is get organized. And one of the things is we are planning to go slow and steady. We're not trying to rush off and make promises. I keep telling everybody we're going to under promise and over deliver. So as we get going, we get organized, we do our outreach, we get businesses and property owners and residents engaged. And the more engagement, the more we can fill out our committees. There's a design committee, an outreach committee, an economic development committee, promotion committee. The more we get those committees filled out and working, humming along, then we can start thinking about applying for community status. And as I mentioned, there's a number of businesses who are like, let's do this yesterday. And once you become a community, you do have to meet a lot of milestones. So this is a very serious program. It's a very successful program. It's been around for a long time. And, the proof is in visiting some of these other communities. But yeah, we would like to do that. And hopefully that answered your question.
Yep. So you asked about for us to get more involved, and I think a lot of us are very interested in the program. But is this really just for businesses? Any roles for residents?
Yes, there are I think that in terms of the downtown, the experience and different people may have different opinions, but there is there's a big opinion that the property owners, the businesses, and the residents of Moss Bay and the footprint of Main Street could do a lot to join together, get to know each other, and really understand each other in a much more holistic way. And by doing that, together we can have a stronger shop local program. We can understand each other's needs, come to each other's aids. Like, for example, with the scramble, I know when I'm downtown, I do hear people walking along, and saying, gee whiz, this is really going on for a long time. So if people are interested in learning more about committees, you can certainly reach out to me, and I would be more than happy to have somebody come to one of our intro meetings or to take a private meeting if that's of interest.
Okay. Anyone else in the chat with questions for Sheila? No? Okay. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and very interested to hear more about the program in the future.
Great. Thank you, Alec. It's hard to follow after the chief of police. So anyway, Thank you. And thank you everybody for enduring my little speech there. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Next, we have Brenda Nunes, who can introduce our next guest from the Planning Commission. Brenda, are you there? Nope, can't hear you.
Okay, how's that?
Good.
Hi, I am thrilled to introduce Gina Madeya, our newest planning director. And I don't know how she has time to do this. She is Vice President of Government Affairs for the local Seattle King County Realtors. She's a realtor by day with Windermere Yarrow Bay. And she also is a director at the National Association of Realtors. She has an extensive resume beyond that. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to her. We've asked her to discuss why is she taking the time to be on the Kirkland Planning Commission? What does she bring to the table? And what keeps her up at night? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gina.
Thank you, Brenda. And thanks all of you in Moss Bay for allowing me some time on your agenda this evening. Alex, am I able to share?
You should be.
Cool. Let's see if I can actually do that. Look at that. All right, I'm gonna put this in present mode. Cool, all right. So thank you, Brenda, for the introduction. Like Brenda said, I'm a realtor. She and I have had the opportunity to work together on several occasions. Hold on, I'm trying to, and yeah, a lot of what inspired me to want to join the City of Kirkland Planning Commission has to do with what I see day in and day out in the trenches in my role as a realtor. So some of the things that keep me up at night and is what gives me time to do everything it is the market conditions, right? And so, I mean, some of this will feel like realtor speak, but you know, I remember when COVID started, and even if you're not a realtor, I would expect that many of you on the phone tonight were shocked at just how the market took off. And there was this seemingly unstoppable momentum in terms of the meteoric rise in property values, driven by a change in people's living needs as far as the types of homes and such that would work for them. You know, we didn't think it could sustain, and we did hit a little bit of a bubble when the interest rates ticked back up, but people are still back with a vengeance. And the challenge, as we can see here, is that with the abysmally low supply, but the continuing strong demand, we've seen double-digit value gains year over year. So if you're looking at 2024, as of April, the median closed sale price on a home on the east side was $1.67 million. 59% of the homes that sold in the last month were in multiple offers, and the median difference between the list price and what it sold for was 9%. So these are staggering numbers, and why this keeps me up at night, again, goes back to the huge challenge we have in terms of a shortage of supply, and this type of dynamic making the dream of home ownership really something that's out of reach for the majority of people. I'll show you some data on that in a minute. So this brings me to another reason that I have ulcers. I think about our growth projections, right? So we don't have enough housing to go around. It's causing prices to skyrocket. And then when you look at the stats from the Puget Sound Regional Council, and I'm sure many of you on the phone tonight know that they are a planning entity in King, Pierce, Snohomish, and Kitsap counties, and they help coordinate regional and local planning efforts. So from a housing perspective, they're really focused on ensuring that all people have a range of safe and affordable housing choices in order to create the kind of healthy and prosperous futures for the region, especially with an emphasis on eliminating racial disparities in access to housing. So when we look at these population projections, like, it's mind-boggling. I'll focus, of course, on Pierce County, but what they're envisioning by 2024 is a 42% increase in population, contributing to the total region of 3.276 million people. So if we already have a housing shortage, the question then becomes, where in the heck are these folks going to live? And how do we hold true to this vision to create housing opportunities for people across all rungs of that ladder while keeping that huge population growth in mind? So I feel like we are all really fortunate to live in the city of Kirkland. I take this opportunity in the Planning Commission with profound seriousness and gratitude. But we have some challenges, and I'm proud that Kirkland is sort of leading the way in terms of really being committed to try to address these issues of supply and affordability. What I think is pretty interesting here, this is part of our 2044 vision, is that when we look at where the pockets of housing needs are, the majority of them are at the 50% or below AMI, which is the area median income. We don't need the housing as much here per se, right? So despite these intense headwinds in terms of projections and reality, in terms of what supply and demand is doing to rapidly escalating housing prices, I do see that this opportunity to participate in the Planning Commission and to engage the community, even like yourselves this evening, or if you take the time to come to council or planning meetings, is a way to help shape the future of this city that we're all proud to call home. I mean, it's humbling to follow in the police chief's presentation and Main Street presentation. These are all people that care very deeply about the future of our city. So when I think about Kirkland's commitment to enabling our teachers, our police folks, the chief said that maybe she can count on one hand 2 police folk that live here. Our teachers, like, we don't talk to Brenda any given day, she'll tell you, right, that we don't need our teachers having to drive up from Enumclaw and because they can't afford to live here. So City of Kirkland right now is committed to its vision of creating a vibrant, connected, and sustainable city, and has been partnering with council to address all of the things that drive our challenges. So the big areas of focus right now in terms of potential land use changes, we're centered in on Totem Lake, 2 sections there, the Goodwill site, and the Michaels site. And what you'll see in terms of common themes across these high-level buckets is an increase in density and a loosening in height restrictions in order to provide more housing units and retail and commercial spaces in those target areas. Understand that I just got appointed like a month ago, and I've been to exactly 2 meetings. So this was all part of the outcome of the comprehensive planning work. So you can ask me any questions you want. I'm not sure how well I'll be able to answer some of the specifics, but I'm definitely interested in input. We are currently very focused on the neighborhood plans for Juanita and Kingsgate areas, and are in the process of actually conducting public hearings on some of these proposed land use changes. And all of this information is available on the City of Kirkland website. You can go to this URL and you can see that there's a hyperlink to both the Juanita neighborhood plan and the Kingsgate neighborhood plans. And as I mentioned, we do have upcoming hearings. We had one last week on these variety of topics. I was in Washington, D.C. lobbying, but I was asking one of my fellow commissioners how the input on the economic development component went, because I feel strongly that that's a big synergistic element, obviously, to what we're trying to accomplish. And he said there wasn't a lot of commentary on that particular piece, which I found surprising. But on May 23rd, we have another hearing focused on land use, the sustainability and climate element, human services, and neighborhood plans again. And then on the 27th, we'll be focusing more on transportation, capital facilities, utilities, public services, and implementation. And then in September, will be another public hearing related to the housing component and appendices. So plenty of opportunity either at planning commission hearings or more broadly at city council to make your voice heard. It's important and we want your input. So I'll stop and open it up.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Questions for Gina? I can sort of kick things off. Not having attended any of the, or listened in at any of the planning commission meetings, I was wondering if you could just give us a breakdown, like what happens, how do you devote your time in these actual meetings?
Well, lately we've been taking a look at land use policy and trying to make sure that it's integrated with our vision and with some of the other components that impact the work that we do, right? So I think about the transportation element, for example. That has been a pretty common theme in feedback, either at the live sessions or through emails that we get, that folks are concerned, for example, about congestion along 98th Street and 124th and those corridors that we are targeting for some of these efforts. So there's a lot of work together with staff to make sure that there's synergy and connectedness in a way that makes sense. So sometimes it's a lot of wordsmithing, but it's also just, again, making sure that that coordination is there so we're not creating more of a problem than we're trying to solve.
Okay. And so sorry, Chuck, I think there's a question there.
As we increase the density, especially from Juanita Market, like Washington Boulevard, Central, the parts of Kirkland that are right around our central business district downtown. What are our plans for improving the roadway or improving access to those neighborhoods as they get more dense? I always think of the fact that we only have a one-way or one-lane road through in the middle of downtown Central and Lake and Market that is always going to be a one-lane street. How are we going to deal with the traffic density as we increase the density? Thank you.
That's a fair question. I don't have a fully vetted answer. It is a repeated topic of conversation and challenge. We're also trying to figure out, if there's an opportunity to expand, what are the other things that need to be done in terms of drainage, in terms of setbacks, in terms of all those things. But we know that, and I'm trying to find on another page in the background here, and I'm not going to be able to find it. we know that that is a major issue because those corridors will continue to need to be main arterials north and south. And in their current state, it's hard to envision that they can expand in a way to accommodate what will be in the increased traffic. But it's what I can tell you is it's top of mind, and I am not sure how that's all going to play out, but it's definitely part of the equation that we're trying to solve.
Thank you.
Okay, no other questions? I think we're a little overwhelmed.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, maybe it's a personal question, but how much time is devoted, do you devote to the Planning Commission outside of the meetings themselves and the hearings? It sounds like a lot.
Yeah, it is. I feel like being a realtor, I have a little bit of just context that helps. But I probably spend a few hours every week just going over the available information in preparation for the meetings. And then I do read all of the emails that come in from the public. And I would say 80-20, we got 80% of folks who are in favor, at least theoretically. Some of them expressing concerns like the gentleman did with regard to the transportation component. But yeah, in terms of the available information, talking with staff behind the scenes to get a better understanding of what we're trying to tackle, and then hearing the public commentary and staying apprised of it through the emails that we receive. It's a several hour a week pleasure ride, because I do enjoy this.
I think no other questions. Well, thank you so much, Gina. We definitely appreciate you joining us this evening and for all the work you do on the commission.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks again.
Okay, next up, John, if you're still with us. John Burkhalter is the Development Engineering and Environmental Services Manager with the city, and he's here to give us an update in terms of the U.S. bank property redevelopment.
Thanks, Alex. I'm here with Dan Watchler and Nick Tosti, which I believe are also on the call with the Cordillera Group, and their architect with Bayless Architects, Meredith Everest. So they could answer some questions if they come up, but I'm going to lead the presentation and just sort of talk through everything here. So let me share my screen, which will be helpful. Hopefully that is working.
Yep.
Perfect. So is that balanced on the screen? Hopefully it's centered, because I'm using a smaller screen here and it's a little bit wonky. I think everyone's probably familiar with the previously U.S. Bank building at 177 Central Way, which is shown here. And it's going to start going under permitting and redevelopment. And there's a couple challenges with it, which I will talk about, and then kind of have some visuals to show. So currently, the operation down there is pretty unique. So you have these retail businesses along Park Lane. In the alley in the back, they have where their dumpsters are located, and it's also the location by which they get deliveries. And if you were to go down there, pretty much, I think any morning, sometime around 7 o'clock, you would see Waste Management going through the alley and picking up trash and emptying dumpsters. Part of how they do that is they will drive through the US Bank parking lot, and there's a big blue dumpster here that's not on any wheels. And then they might drive down and wheel out and go down this way. I've also seen them come through the East Side Trains property and pick up dumpsters and head out to Main Street. I'm not a planner, but the zoning down here is 0 lot line zoning, which means they could build a building up to the edge of their property line. This project, like many projects out there, will have sort of standard frontage improvements. So similar to what you've been seeing where the former Bartell's site used to be, and kind of east of there, and or along the Kirkland urban frontage of Central Way. So it'll be a travel lane, 6-foot bike lane, parking, and then 12, 13-foot wide sidewalk for pedestrians. And that'll all be, as part of this development. The unique part is this question of, well, there's a couple questions, and there's still more analysis and study to be done, but how is this alley going to function once waste management or delivery trucks, for that matter, do the same thing, won't have this US Bank parking lot to operate in? And, part of it is the only out that they have currently would be to come through the Central and Lake parking lot, which is owned and or managed by the city of Kirkland. So they could come in that way theoretically, or go out that way, or come in and go out through Main Street, or they could continue to potentially use the East Side train property. But long term, that is not really not really feasible. So I got some pictures here I'll show you real quick that kind of put this into perspective. So this red line represents, plus or minus a few inches, the edge of the property. And so if you can imagine a building being built directly up against that, you can see where a garbage truck's going to have a hard time making it through this alley. Additionally, this is a little bit closer. There's that large blue dumpster I mentioned that it's not on wheels currently. And so that's all looking west towards the parking lot at the corner of Lake and Central. It's one more photo that's not helpful. This is looking east. This car happened to be there when I was down there taking the picture, but I think it's sort of, as a frame of reference of size, you can see potentially a large garbage truck. It would be fairly tight. I think they could probably squeeze through here with these just regular cans, but as you can see, with a larger dumpster being 3-4 feet deep, it would probably be infeasible. And again, that red line represents that. Here is so this is waste management. They're coming through the East Side Trains parking lot, and they're picking up that dumpster, and this is them exiting out to get a little scale. And here is a UPS truck. I'm not sure if they're going to the UPS store or if they were making a delivery to a business along Park Lane, but that the truck was definitely there for 5+ minutes. And, here's just a regular truck making a delivery to a restaurant. This happened to be a guy bringing in beverages. And like right now, that's kind of fine, but cars could go around them using the parking lot, but it's going to get a lot more congested back here. So, oops, back to this. All right. So kind of going back to my previous slide. So the thing we're talking about doing is meant to solve that problem. It's also meant to increase circulation and sort of set up this block for future redevelopment if it were ever to become necessary, or somebody decided to sell their property and somebody decided to redevelop it. So I have a schematic, sort of a, let me see if I can, here we go. guys? I don't know what I just messed up. Oh, I think I do now. Sorry about this. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty. Okay. This yellow box was a square representing some parking here. Let me see if I guess I got it too big. Hold on, or too small. Let me zoom in. Are you guys kind of seeing the alley and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So, so here's that east-west alley. Here's the U.S. Bank property, Central Way, and along the edge here is what is an unopened alleyway currently. And you can see this in the survey. There are 7 parking stalls that are right along that edge, and they are actually out into the unopened alleyway, but they're serving the parking lot there at the corner of Lake and Central. So what we're working here is to give a way for delivery vehicles, waste management to be able to get in and out of the alley, and to provide future circulation for potential redevelopment of the retail spaces along Park Lane, because without it, it could be that there would be an entrance to a new building from Park Lane, which I think Park Lane, everyone agrees, is more of a pedestrian sort of oriented. I can't think of the word. The Wunder. I can't think of the word, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about, right? It's more pedestrian oriented. So with the, there's always concerns with parking downtown, right? So we got 7 stalls here that were in the Lake and Central parking lot. And we're thinking that we would be able to get 3 back here. Currently out in front of the Bank of America and the Central parking lot, there are 2 parking stalls because the driveway cuts along the Lake and Central parking lot and the US Bank parking lot don't allow for parking. So those 2 existing stalls are, and if you can see my cursor, and I apologize if you can't, one is right here underneath this yellow faux car that I have there. And the other one is right in front of where the unopened right-of-way is. And then there is 3, I believe, motorcycle stalls. So once the frontage is redeveloped, we're looking to remove the direct access to the parking lot off of Central Way, which will allow us to redo that bike lane through there and get 2 more parking stalls there. And then by removing the curb, most of the curb cuts along the Central Way frontage that serve the existing US Bank building, we were able to get 5 more parking stalls, and then also be able to fit in the 3 motorcycle stalls that were currently there. So, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, if I counted that right. Yeah, 10 parking stalls, where we originally had 7 here and 2 on the street. So we're maintaining actually one plus positive sort of general public parking. And then, the building itself will have its own parking for both residential and retail. The alleyways are only 16 feet wide. So what this proposal shows is getting an additional 4 feet north-south along the unopened right-of-way to enable us to open that up 20 feet wide, which would allow for, basically 2-way traffic in and out, which would serve, at least from Central Way, we'd have a service from Central Way to the Lake and Central. And then there's also an existing, which is going to remain the same, from Park Lane. And then it would also serve, again, for delivery vehicles and waste management. It would provide service to the retail function of the proposed building. And then in the future, potentially provide access to a redevelopment project for any of those parcels along along Park Lane. You can see that we are proposing to move the existing median island back to allow for a little pocket of storage, left turns into this newly opened alleyway. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell, though there was, all of these things still need to, there needs to still be a transportation impact analysis and, sort of some study on what this would mean and how it would impact traffic. And I know there's probably be some concerns about that. But
So
this
John,
is a working document, I guess.
John, quick question. Is there anything in the plan right now in terms of the actual structure itself, or are we just really talking about the access around it?
Yeah, I mean, there's the zoning allows for 45 feet in height, and it's the standard sort of, downtown ground floor retail with residential above. This building, I think, would be proposed to be 4 stories. It would have the sort of the zoning required step backs from Central Way, similar to what you may have seen or noticed with the most recent development on Lake Street. I guess where Hector's used to be, that building is stepped back. Again, that's sort of outside of my sphere of understanding, but that's the general sort of the general explanation.
Okay.
But if anyone has any questions, it certainly or even comments, certainly would be interested in hearing the input.
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, is anybody besides me thinking of the fact that the thing we need in this spot is parking? Otherwise, we're going to just kill downtown as we know it now.
Are you referring to because there's parking at the US Bank building currently?
The entire piece of property should be turned into a parking garage.
All right. I will take that under advisement. I don't have any control.
Am I the only one that thinks that as
that.
you're presenting this? It just seems that that's the obvious thing we need in downtown Kirkland is parking. Everybody hates cars, but it's a reality that they exist.
Yeah. I guess the one thing I would say, Chuck, is that we are at least incrementally a small net positive. Plus, there will be, parking for its own retail, which depending on the use would allow for additional kind of general use parking as kind of used by people at the US Bank parking lot currently, right? There wasn't a whole lot of people that, parked at the bank, at least that I ever saw. I mean, but I know people parked there because there were pay stations. They had paid parking there.
We're adding to a handful of parking stalls, but we're adding 3 stories of residential living.
Yep.
Those people either are likely to have cars or at least want to.
Yeah, and they will have absolutely, Chuck, and of course they will have parking, required residential parking for themselves. The hope of this kind of density is that those individuals will, walk down and use services around Kirkland, whether they go to a restaurant or stop by retail or, that kind of stuff.
Hey, John, I can chime in on the parking briefly if that's okay.
Sure, Nick.
Yeah, so the project itself, one thing that John's presenting tonight is opening the alleyway. That allows us to park the building appropriately And we should be able to not lose any parking spots. The parking that currently is represented on the US Bank site, we can replicate within the building structure and make that open to the public. So that's kind of the goal. And this proposal that John outlines helps us do that because of the benefit in accessing the building.
Okay, so I'm just reading a couple of comments in the chat here. One from Glenn. The zoning regs are rather complicated downtown. I'm not sure there's a step back requirement for the parcel. The parcel across the street doesn't seem to be step back. Not sure if John or Nick would be aware of that one.
Like I said, I'm not the planning expert. But whatever the zoning regulations are for this property, they will be followed. And Nick and/or Dan might know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the zoning downtown is complicated, and to appropriately answer that question, we have to go through a bit of a process on our end with both the city and our architect. I mean, everything that we are currently discussing will fall within the provided code. So,
Don has a question. Just wondering if we have a target for a number of residential units on the site.
Yeah, well, between 24 and 30 units.
Okay. Looks like Al has a question. Is the new alley wider than the current alley?
Dan can probably answer that question. I think it's 2 feet wider. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2 feet wider.
And I would add that, the alleys are typically only 16 feet wide, but to accommodate sort of the old downtown Kirkland that doesn't have trash or recycling storage inside the buildings that can be rolled out when waste management comes down the alley. That's sort of one of the reasons we're here, is that the alley does need to be widened. So the north-south would be 18 feet, and the east-west would be 18 feet, and the north-south will be 20 feet wide.
Okay. So I think that answers Blake's question, which is what needs to happen to increase the alley from 16 to 20 feet. So if we wanted to increase it further, I guess completely 20 feet, what would that take? Or what would need to happen?
You mean on the east-west portion?
I assume so.
Oh, okay. So, so the building would have to shrink. So we're in this, at least in my mind, we're in this issue where, we are trying to sort of deal with old issues related to old development standards, and yet we are piecemealing the downtown together. And so the sort of the partnership that we have with the development in order to sort of kind of answer all the long-term things I've talked about, which is, hey, well, we've got, we have to get garbage and deliveries to retail businesses that exist currently, as well as the new building. We need to get them in and out. We also need to account for potentially future development of those buildings. And I think, the long-term plan is that, if the Park Lane side were to develop, we would get an additional 2 feet there, and then we would be at 20 feet. We absolutely need the 20 feet on the north-south to be able to close down the driveways that are right at the corner on Central Way that serve the parking lot, and allow them to be able to access from this, as well as to allow access to the new development, which is their sort of retail ground floor parking platform. So it's addressing a lot of different issues, and I think there's more, like I said, there's more study to be done, but this is definitely a great start, in my opinion.
I can answer a few more questions I see here. There is another level of subterranean parking for the residential units. And then the problem with making the alley in the back wider is actually we would lose parking on the commercial floor here shown on the site plan, because there's a minimum width required by the planning department for the retail establishments. So we have to have 40-foot depth for a portion of it, average 30-foot depth. So to meet that code, we're kind of going through some gymnastics to get as much parking as possible for the public while meeting the code.
Got it. So sorry, John, we got a question here. Can you reintroduce the people on the team? I think you went over really quickly.
Yeah. So Dan Watchler is the gentleman that just spoke, and Nick was the first gentleman to speak, and also on the call is their architect Meredith.
Okay, and they're from, sorry, Dan and Nick,
from the Corollary Group, Kirkland-based company, development company.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Question from Taylor. Bella is 100% vacant on ground floor for retail. So how will this building attract tenants that Bella can't seem to?
That's a great question. It's quite a ways away. We've got a extensive process in front of us before it will be filled with a tenant. We've had preliminary conversations with real brokers, and there's a lot of interest in it. It's a nice spot. So, we're hopeful that we should be able to fill
it. So Gina is asking, are any of the, the residential units targeted for affordable housing?
They are not. No, the CBD, Central Business District, does not have affordability in its code.
Got it. Okay. Okay, I think unless anyone else has a question, go ahead and maybe you can unmute at this point. Okay, I can't see everybody hands. But in terms of, oh, sorry,
going back to the parking issue. On the north side of Central, a lot of those businesses have failed over the last 5 or 10 years. People go in and they come out. They don't survive. And I think that the number one reason they don't survive is that there's nowhere to park. Sorry to bring it up again, but I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with any commercial on the north side of this US Bank property too. It'll come and go.
Okay, Taylor.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I have to agree with Chuck. We have a business on Park Lane, and we just got done with this parking study, citywide parking study, and they found that the places that actually have adequate parking was where they had successful retail and long-term retail. And I know that was one issue with the Vela, is I think for that whole bottom floor, I think they have like 15 guest spots for all those places. And I know that Ethan Stoll had looked to go in there, and then we had some communication with him with some of the other downtown businesses and property owners, and he basically said there's 15 spots. He was like, that can't even fill the bar. And I know Mr. West was going to go in there. They had similar concerns. So I think, yeah, as you're in the planning stages, I think just for the success of the property and the retailers and the future tenants, most stores, they want to have this minimum amount of parking. Look at places that do have parking, not suggesting we become that, but U Village and Totem Lake Boulevard, Bell Square, they have free parking and adequate parking. So I think it might be, as we're in the planning stages, be beneficial to, think about maybe increasing whatever number. You can never have enough.
Yeah, Taylor and Chuck, we fully understand, and I think it's something that we're gonna look at very seriously. I think parking is a big deal, both on the residential side and on the retail side. just as an asset to our company. You know, we want to obviously provide the best possible space, and that's something that we're going to look at seriously. We understand what you guys are saying, and that I would second John Burkhalter and what he said. I mean, this sort of layout with opening up the right of way in the alley helps us do that.
Okay, Jean has her hand raised.
Oh,
Good.
I'd love to hear Meredith's point of view on this.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Meredith with Bayless Architects. And yeah, I think what Nick and Dan have shared so far is really where we're at. We're so early in the design process that there's still a lot that we need to work through. And as they described, we'll be working within the confines of the zoning code. And so over the next several months, things will start to unfold. And then, it does go through the design review board process. So we'll be presenting the project as it develops in the future.
Thank you.
But I'm happy to answer any specific questions if I can as well.
Just wondering what the timelines are, as you're aware, in terms of what are the next key milestones for this project as we've described it.
Nick or Dan, did you want to answer that, or do you want me to chime in?
Dan, why don't you go ahead and answer that?
The timelines of the project. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to pull together a DRB proposal sooner than later and go in for our design conference here, the initial design conference with the city. And yeah, I mean, we're just going through the process as in a direct fashion. And the process takes time, so we're into it. The city timelines have gone quick and sometimes, and slow at other times, and I'm not going to cross my fingers that it's going to be a quick one per se.
Got it. Okay, we have a last question here from Blake. Is there a possibility of building residential only without retail on the bottom floor for this project?
I mean, I think a planner would probably have to answer that question. Currently, it's a requirement for us to provide that as part of the development.
Got it. Okay. Great. Well, thank you all very much for coming and sharing this redevelopment of sort of a very central site here in Moss Bay. So if we have additional questions, where do you propose we go to get additional information there, John?
I would just send an email to me up until the time that this project gets into design review, which but I would say send them to me, planning questions or otherwise, and I will make sure that the appropriate department gets the question and provides a response. And that would be to my email address, which is Burkhalter. And I think my name is showing, so I don't have to spell it. And it's at kirklandwad.gov.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll be posting all the links and any contact information that's been shared when we post the recordings on our website and on our Facebook page. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this evening, and we will be in touch if we have additional questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, and thank you for squeezing us onto your agenda. Really do appreciate it.
No, not a problem.
All right. Everyone have a good night.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Okay. So last up, we have an update in terms of the neighborhood safety program by Don Winters. Don, are you there?
I didn't unmute. Yes, I'm here.
There you are.
Hello, everyone. We do have somewhat of an update. We're still up in the air as to the final disposition of the neighborhood safety program, but I do have a little bit of an update, and I'm going to share my screen and see if It says I can't share it while someone else is sharing. Okay, let me try it again. All right, so yeah, I'll go over here. All right. So oh, that's not what I wanted there. So let me see. Sorry about this. Okay, I am gonna have to, I guess I have the wrong PowerPoint on there, so let me, okay, so let me, maybe I just better do it without the PowerPoint. I really kind of need it. I thought I had it queued up there, and I guess I don't. So let me get in here and this will just take a minute here. I'm gonna find it. Okay,
Sure.
So yeah, here. Okay, so yeah, okay. So I don't know if I'm sharing my screen now, though. I guess I'm not.
No.
So let me see. I'm gonna share it again. All right, here we go. All right. So sorry about that. I thought I had that all queued up. I guess I had the wrong PowerPoint queued up. So it was another safety program PowerPoint, but not the right one. So all right, so we got feedback from the city on our project, and to make it as simple as possible, I'll just say that out of 6 neighborhoods, there's 12 neighborhoods in Kirkland, 6 of them proposed safety program candidates. And so out of those 6, we came in last as far as the scoring goes by the city's evaluation. And that's because they use a bunch of parameters that we just didn't score well on. And those parameters are things like accidents, pedestrian accidents that have happened in that location, the amount of traffic, and other things that I thought we'd scored good on, that whether it connects existing sidewalk segments, which is exactly what we're doing. And somehow we didn't score well on that. So I kind of argue with it a little bit. But in the end, it might not matter because in the past, the top 3 candidates were approved for getting their projects funded. But this year, there's 6 projects, and if you add all the cost of the 6 projects together, it comes out then less than the amount of money that's allotted for the entire neighborhood safety program. So they could conceivably approve all 6 projects. So that we're waiting for the final disposition of that. And one problem we've been having is that we don't really have a neighborhood services coordinator. We haven't really had one since Kari Page left about 2 or 3 years ago. So we had Don Robinson, but he only was here about a year, just about when he was getting up to speed, he left. And so now we have Erica Mascaro, who's doing a good job, but she already has a job. So this would just put a fantastic amount of workload on her. And so the progress of the program has been kind of slow. So this was the feedback we got on our, oh, this is not the right thing either. Oh no, I apologize for this, but I thought it was all set up here. So I guess I don't have the right PowerPoint yet. I thought that was it. So anyway, I don't really have to find that. Let me look one more time here. Okay, it's in here. Okay, I guess I just can't find it, and I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Let me see here. Let me see if this one here.
Well, it's okay, Don. Was it something specific about the project, or the last note I saw was?
It just gave the feedback of that the city gave us on the Kirkland Avenue crosswalk.
Got it.
And the I can bring up the actual. Okay, well, I can bring this part up. You can still see that, yeah. Okay, so this shows our project was a crosswalk on Kirkland Avenue to connect the north side of Kirkland Avenue, where you see a bunch of buildings where my pointer goes across here. A lot of people live in this area, and to access the Cross Kirkland corridor, which is this thin green line right here, they would have to jaywalk across Kirkland Avenue. So we proposed a crosswalk that they could get across there and walk up a sidewalk on this side right onto the trail. And that also at the same time would allow people walking down Kirkland Avenue on the sidewalk here to cross over to continue, because the sidewalk ends on the south side, and by crossing over the street you could continue on the north side. So that was the gist of our project. So they wrote up their reply to it, and they said they would have to move the crosswalk down to about here, right about here. And so that reduces the usefulness of it, because anyone who up here who wanted to get to the corridor is not going to backtrack and come back and go back this way. So I was pretty unhappy that they had to move it down so far. It would be most useful if it was up this end, but the curve would be a problem. So then they just described what the project would have. It would have ADA ramps on both sides, and there would be improved lighting. LED street lights would be improved from the old styles incandescent street light to a LED type street light to light the area. And so that was the gist of it. We'd have to move it down the street, and they described how they would do it. So it still remains to be approved. We have to hear the final disposition of whether they are going to approve all 6 for funding or not. And I'm waiting to hear from Erica on that. So sorry about the snafu with the PowerPoints, but that's the gist of it.
No, it looks like I saw the note that the council meeting presentation to the council was bumped to the one on the May 21st. So.
Oh, okay. You know more than I do then.
Yeah, it looks like it just got pushed out a couple of weeks. So I think we probably will have an answer within a few weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice if it was approved, but I'm a little bit unhappy that with the placement of it. I was kind of worried about that all along, and it turned out to be a legitimate worry. So, because even if they do it, it eliminates a place where there's no sidewalk at all, but you'd have to cross over to the other side of the street, and then when you got down to 6th Street down here, you'd have to cross back in order to continue. because there's no sidewalk on this side over here. So it just doesn't work out 100% great, no matter how you slice it.
Got it. Okay. Hey, Don, thank you so much for that update. And maybe we can share it out through email or whatever once we get some sort of conclusion from the city on that project.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, as soon as I find out, I'll let you know, and we can send out an email or put it on the website.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll get the word out there.
Okay, so thank you everyone for attending and staying with us. So once again, our next happy hour is going to be June 10th. Look for details either in the email or on our website, Facebook page. Should be coming out in a couple of weeks. And we do take a break in the summer for the actual neighborhood meeting. So our next meeting will not be until September 9th. Until then, we're always going to be on our email at contact@mossbay.org if you have any questions, concerns, or just commentary during the summer. I think that's it. So once again, thanks everyone for attending, and have a great summer, everyone.
Alex,
Yeah.
Could I just make a quick announcement
Oh, yes.
for who's still here?
Please.
This Saturday, the 18th, Matt McCauley, who's a Kirkland historian, is giving his annual tour up at the Kirkland Cemetery from 10 to 12. There's no charge, but he really does a good job. He talks about the history of Kirkland and the people that are buried up there. He does a good job. And then, and for those that don't know where the cemetery is, it's across from Lake Washington High School up on Rose Hill. And on Sunday, the 19th, the Kirkland Downtown Association is doing their annual clean sweep in downtown Kirkland. Last year, we had over 100 volunteers that come and clean up. So if anybody would like to come and help with that, we have 2 different shifts, one from 9 to 12. And then there's a pizza lunch. And then after that, 12:30 to 3:30. And to sign up, you can go to kirklanddowntown.org. Okay, that's it. Thanks, Alex. Good meeting.
Oh, yep. Thanks, Sue. And sorry, which shift are you taking, Sue? I know you're a lead in one of those.
Oh, if anybody would like to be on my team, we have Central Avenue from Market up to 3rd, the purple zone. Come join me. At both shifts. I'm going to be there all day.
You're both shifts. Okay. Yeah. Jean, you have your hand up. Do you have something?
Just want to say thank you, Sue. I think I saw the notice come out of that, and that's excellent. You're doing that again. And also, Alex, thank you. I think the agenda tonight was great. Thank you.
I agree.
Great. Thank you so much.
Night,
All right.
everybody.